Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. Again, I am Kaylee Batesman, the Content Director at SheCanCode, and today we are discussing how to excel in a male-dominated industry. Being the only or one of the only women in a room can be intimidating, but choosing the right company can help you to not only survive within a male-dominated sector, but thrive. Today, I've got the amazing Jess Madhavan, engineering manager at SheCanCode, with me to share her own experiences of working both in a male-dominated tradesman sector and the male-dominated tech world as well. So welcome, Jess. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for having me on the podcast today. So I'm Jess, I'm an engineering manager at SheCanCode. I joined about 4 to 5 months ago now. So I've been here, for a while, and it's been a nice journey so far.
How did you land your role, Jess? Because you've been there 4 to 5 months. Is it something that you, working in tech, was that something that you always knew you wanted to do, or did you fall into tech? I hear both.
I know there's so many different ways you can get into tech now, to be honest. So I actually followed quite a traditional route of going into computer science at university. I studied that for a few years, and then in my final year I did computer science combined with software engineering. So I started off my first role as a software engineer in a graduate role. I did software engineering for a number of years. I also did tech support for a bit while I was in uni. And then after I sort of had my time software engineering, I think a few years into the role, I realized that I enjoyed more of the team leading and helping the teams with their process and efficiency and stuff like that. So I started to naturally help the team do more. And then I thought about, okay, so could I potentially move into management? And then I started exploring my opportunities into what an engineering manager is and what an engineering manager does. After that, I moved into a small startup. I thought I would start small first as an engineering manager, work with a smaller team, smaller company, and see how it goes and see if I actually like the role. I really loved being an engineering manager, to be honest. And I think at that point, I knew definitely what I wanted to do and where I wanted to progress. So then that led me, after spending about 6 to 7 months in a smaller company as an engineering manager, I thought, you know what, I want to go back to a big company, and I want to do this role properly with, bigger teams, bigger company, more engineering managers around me. So then I started off my search on LinkedIn mainly, just looking at engineering manager roles in general, in a lot of the bigger companies. And then I was contacted by someone at SheCanCode, so one of their internal recruiters, Laura, through LinkedIn. And then she had a conversation with me a few times. We spoke, she told me what it was like to work at SheCanCode and about the teams and how everything was structured, the projects they were working on. And I think at that point I was kind of sold, and I was like, okay, you know what, I think this might be the next role for me. Like, I just loved the sound of the company, how it was structured, the growth that was going on at the moment in SheCanCode. It was all really exciting to me, and I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to progress, this is going to be a great place to go into an engineering manager role and start my route there. That's how I pretty much landed my role at SheCanCode. It was through LinkedIn, through Laura, went through the interview process after that, and then accepted an offer.
Amazing. I've got so many questions I want to ask you after everything that you just said.
Yes.
Go ahead. You said so many interesting things there, that you worked at a startup, which did you really enjoy working at a startup? That's such a different mindset to work in a startup. And I understand when people want the change and they want to go back to a bigger company, but did you learn a lot there? Probably a lot faster than you've learned in bigger companies.
Yeah, I feel like I did. So obviously going into the startup, I didn't know what to expect, because I've always been in bigger companies my whole life, like even before uni and some of my retail jobs, all the way through to my tech jobs before that role, always in bigger companies. So when I moved into the startup, I really didn't know what to expect, apart from, I've heard a lot about it being fast paced and, you're working at 100 miles per hour. So then when I got into the startup, I was really surprised that I guess how tight knit the team was and how well everyone worked together. And that was the really nice thing about it. So I was really integrated with everyone there. And, you know, you kind of know everyone all the way, you know, even in the different departments. So I was in like a fintech startup. So, you know, I would know people from the tech department and in engineering, as well as people who were in the more financial side. And everyone would just get along really well. And I think being in a startup like that, you just get to talk to so many different people about so many different things. And because it's such a smaller, tight-knit place, you learn about different focus areas a lot easier. Whereas, you know, in a bigger company, when you're in engineering, you're just in one sector and you kind of stick to that because the companies, you know, they're just too huge to go off into a tangent and go and learn about the other departments or what other people are doing as much. But yeah, I just learned so much in the startup about what other areas of the company did, and I guess how we were working with them and for them as engineers. As an EM, how my teams would help them, and I would have a lot more involvement with all the stakeholders there. And yeah, it was just super fast paced, and I really liked that. And you know, I would even have like chats with the CEO there and all of the higher ups and leadership, which is not something you often do in like a bigger company. You wouldn't, you know, just talk to the CEO every day and things like that. So it's just, I think the best thing about being in the startup was just being able to speak to all of those different people and understanding what they're doing and how I'm helping them as their engineering manager and how my teams are helping them as engineers as well. So yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah, really set you up for when you go back to a bigger company.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Also interested in, you said you took a traditional route into computer science. How was that? Was there other girls on your course? Were you the only one? What was your experience like?
Yeah, so it was very I guess it was a lot different to what I expected. I mean, somewhat actually. So I expected to go into a computer science course and there'd be not so many women on the course. So actually in sixth form I studied IT for a bit, and I was again the only girl in the class. There was only 5 of us anyway, but I was the only girl in the class. And then when I moved on to computer science in university, there were, you know, maybe 5 or so girls in my course, you know, in a room of 150 to 200 males, which was just absolutely, it was scary as a woman going into that, thinking like, wow, I'm so outnumbered at the moment. Like, who am I going to make friends with? Like, am I going to get along with all of the people here? Are we going to have similar mindsets, or are we going to be completely different? And it's just all those things that go on in your head when you enter into a big lecture hall like that, when you're one of, you know, 5 women or so.
Yeah, it's quite a lot, and it turns a lot of female students off as well, unfortunately, that they don't make it to the end, which is quite a shame. But you made it to the end. You made it through several companies and then to SheCanCode. Can you tell us now about your what is your day-to-day like at SheCanCode? I'm assuming it is exceptionally busy.
Yeah, so that's right. So my day as an engineering manager, at the moment I manage 2 teams, so my time is split between both teams really. On a day-to-day, I generally start off with the team ceremony. So we'll have stand-ups in the morning and I'll get updates from my teams, and I'll help them prioritize what they're working on for the day in terms of, you know, what projects we have upcoming, any deadlines we have, anything we want to release for the day. And we're always continuously working towards our goals. So we work very agile, and, you know, anything can change day to day. And that's the fun thing about working in a company like SheCanCode. It's so agile, things are changing all the time. So yeah, that's how I start my day. I generally work quite closely with the product manager day to day, product managers on my teams, and we'll discuss often what work is maybe upcoming in the next sprint cycle, what work needs to be prioritized at the moment, and any future work that may be in the talks. So a product manager generally connects more with the stakeholders and the product side of the business, and they'll have all of the know about of, upcoming projects and what's going on, information from stakeholders. So I generally like to keep up to date with my PMs day to day to ensure, I'm on top of everything that we may be working on as an engineering team. So that's really, really important to me. Other than that, I have one-to-ones with my engineers quite regularly. So a one-to-one is where we do personal development. So again, that's another really important thing for me, is working closely with my engineers to understand how they're coping, how they are, checking in with team health, checking in with their goals and how they want to progress, if there's anything I can do to support them, and things like that. And then I also tend to look into metrics day to day quite a lot. So we have a lot of metrics in engineering that we like to follow. And I guess metrics are kind of what helps us understand if we're working the most efficiently, and if we can be, I guess, doing better as a team or working faster. And then that helps us figure out ways we can improve as a team. So often from the metrics, I'll sort of look at them and think about, okay, well, if the metrics have gone up this sprint, then great, what have we done that's worked better this sprint? And at the end of every sprint cycle, we'll have what's called a retrospective, where we summarize, okay, let's look at how we've done and what we can improve on or what's gone really well. And again, that's where the metrics play a big part in ensuring that we can continue to work well and improve ourselves as well. So we're always looking to continuously improve as teams as well, which is really nice. Other than that, I'll generally sync with the other engineering managers day to day. So I'll work a lot with the engineering managers in my pillar. We'll kind of figure out if we have any dependencies between our teams and if any projects overlap and stuff like that. So I tend to have a lot of meetings with the other teams or involve people from my team and the other engineering managers' team to ensure we're all on track with, whatever projects we have going on, and if there's anything we need to do to help each other. So I think one of the most important things is, it's not just about the teamwork, but it's about ensuring we're helping other teams as well. And again, that's a really important thing about being an engineering manager, is talking to the other engineering managers and understand what's going on and how we can help each other, etc. And then last of all, if I'm lucky enough, then I'll be interviewing new talent to come in as well. And I love doing interviews and I love meeting new people, and helping SheCanCode grow. So yeah, that's pretty much sums up what I tend to do day to day. So quite a busy day, as you can tell.
Yes, you have quite a varied day and a varied job as well. Because I think in engineering managing, you think, oh, it's going to be all technical, it's going to be highly technical. Lots of things you just talked about there. You even look back at different sprints and you look at those metrics and you realize where your team did well or didn't do well. And also you just said communicating with other teams. They're all soft skills. They're not technical skills that we all think of.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing. Once you get to a role like engineering manager, like you will rely on a lot of your technical skills to just understand the goings-ons and how things are being built and how your team's working. But you start to shift towards using your soft skills more to coordinate the teams and ensure you're delivering and the teams are working efficiently, and you've got all the right people in place. And yeah, it's definitely a big shift moving from being an engineer to an engineering manager. Such a change.
Yeah. And before you knew all of that, before you came in, what attracted you to the tech sector, but specifically SheCanCode? Because that's a very male-dominated area. What attracted you there?
Yeah, so I think the main thing that attracted me to SheCanCode is when I initially had my conversations with Laura, who was the talent acquisition partner at SheCanCode, and she was telling about the growth of SheCanCode at the time. So when I was hired in, SheCanCode were actually going through a bit of a structural change where they were hiring a lot of engineering managers and heads of engineering. So to me, that really excited me because it meant I would have the opportunity to integrate myself into a new role and figure out, how that role's done as well as work with a load of other new engineering managers who are coming in. And I think for me, going back into a bigger company, it was really important for me to have a lot of engineering managers around me who I could, bounce ideas off and work closely with. So yeah, I think it's mainly the growth aspect that attracted me a lot. And on top of that, it was the way the company was structured as well. So in engineering, we have quite a few pillars. So we have, I think, 4 or 5 different pillars, and pillars are basically areas of the website. So we have different areas of the website. For example, the homeowner pillar, the trades pillar. I'm in the homeowner pillar. So within the homeowner pillar, we have a head of engineering, and each pillar has a head of engineering. And then within our pillar, we have maybe 4 or 5 different pods, and each pod has an engineering manager. And then obviously in the pods, you have engineers and product managers and everyone else. So yeah, I really liked the structure, how I would have like a small close-knit team as well. So we only have about 4 engineers in each team. So that's why it's quite manageable. Although I have 2 teams, there's 4 engineers in each team, a PM in each team. And I do have a direct line manager who's only managing, let's say, maximum 3 or 4 other engineers. So then I get the amount of time that I need with my line manager to help me progress and move forward. Because you can join a company where there's a line manager, but that line manager could be managing maybe 10 other managers, and then you don't get the quality of time that you need to progress. And for me, progression, when joining a company, progression is huge. Progression is so important to me that I need to be in a place where the company is growing, as well as they can support my growth and my progression and where I want to be in the future as well, just as well as I can support them for where they want to be. So yeah, that's what really attracted me to SheCanCode.
Yeah, it sounds like everybody's very supported all along the structure there, so nobody's really left feeling like there's nobody to talk to. Does SheCanCode have an internal women's network at all?
Yeah, so before I joined SheCanCode, that was one of the questions I asked. So there was quite a big internal network of women, and I think at the time I was interviewing, they were in the middle of having some big events. So they did a really nice big event for their International Women's Day, and that seemed like it turned out really nice. And then when I joined, we didn't have a women in tech community yet as such. So that's something that I came in and I've started up like a women in tech community, just so we have a better, tighter knit community of the women in engineering. And lately we've started to have some really meaningful meetings where we've started to have some some open conversations about what's important to us as women in engineering and how can we drive improvements. So it's really nice being able to meet as an internal community. And I think the other day was in a meeting, and one of the ladies there said, like, wow, it's so nice to be in a room of like so many women in SheCanCode. Like, this has never happened to me before. So it's just starting off the smaller communities like that, where you can get together as a group and talk about things with like-minded individuals who are in similar positions as you. And you learn a lot from each other. You learn that, for example, maybe you're not the only person in the room with some of the problems you face or the faults you have as women working in engineering, and you can really relate to the others around you. And I think having that support network around you can really help you excel as well. Like, you don't feel alone if you've got support around you and you've got other peers listening to you and relating to you even. So yeah, that's been a really nice thing that we've been doing recently.
Yeah, that's lovely. And we hear that often on this podcast, just people just finding a group where you can feel like it's not just me. I don't just feel that way, and you can find solutions as well to move forward if somebody might be feeling a certain way. It's just just to be able to share similar stories sometimes can really help with your mental health in work.
Yeah, it does a lot.
Yeah. On that note, how does SheCanCode work to retain its employees in an inclusive and supportive environment, do you think?
Yeah, so
groups would be one of them.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I quite like the fact at the moment we have a really good careers framework in place. So something that we've really put a lot of work into recently is our careers matrix. And what that is like I guess it's a career path, detailing how you can get from, a junior engineer, for example, all the way to a CTO if you wanted to one day. Like it shows you a direct path of where you are as an engineer and what the next levels are. And it's not just that there's one potential level above you. Like you could be a mid-level engineer and you could either say, you know what, I want to continue being technical and I want to become a senior engineer, or you can decide at that point, wait, I think I like leading teams more and I like management. So then you could potentially go into an associate engineering manager if you wanted to. And it's having that defined careers framework, so you know what the options are and the opportunities that you can then talk about with your line manager. And I think it's something so important that everyone understands what the options are available, and there's not just that only one option that, oh, okay, you're a mid-level engineer, so you have to progress up to a senior engineer and then a principal or whatever it is. Yeah, so that's one thing. And then on top of
people
that,
people will only leave, won't they, to find that path.
Exactly,
so you might as well just show them.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, each of the, I guess, the different positions in this careers matrix has a really set out, I guess, kind of engineer leveling path where you can analyze what roles and responsibilities you should be doing in that role. And then I think it really helps me especially, and helps me set goals for my teams as well. So you can sort of look through those roles and responsibilities, and they're in different areas. So it's not just looking at how good you are technically, but you can look at how good you are technically, your domain knowledge, your communication, your leadership skills. And there's roles and responsibilities in each of those sections. And you find that, when you analyze those separate sections, you might find, okay, well, I'm ticking all the green boxes in the technical skills, but actually as a senior engineer, I need to tick a few more boxes in my leadership section. And then that's where your manager comes in and can help you understand which areas need a bit more work. And then something we're really good at doing is setting end of year goals. So at SheCanCode, we pay like end of year bonuses and stuff, and they're all based on people's goals. So when we so it's really motivating, honestly, to be in a company like this where they care so much about your goals and what you're achieving, that everyone has their team goals and their own set goals. And then as you progress with your goals and you discuss those with your line manager, and you get to the end of the year and you've ticked off your goals, then that means you're obviously entitled to a really great bonus for achieving your goals and moving up, in your role.
Incredible. Well, I'm sold. That's great to hear, because I think some companies, they claim that they're invested sometimes, or you might get told, if you want to take a learning course, we've got some budget for that. But actually, investing in setting goals at the beginning of the year, paying out if you reach them. I haven't heard that one before, because that would really encourage you to reach the end of the year and feel like you actually need something.
It motivates you hugely. It helps you understand how much value you're adding. And if everyone's achieving their goals, then that means the company is going to do amazing as well. Hence, the bonuses and the payout to the employees who work so hard to, progress the company as well.
Yeah, what a great way to retain good talent.
I
suppose that makes that easier on you as well. If people are not, if there isn't a high turnover on your teams, that's easier as well, that you can just retain that really good talent. And just
Yeah,
work with them.
definitely. Yeah. And I think that's the thing we do find a lot of checker traders. There are many people who have been here for years and years because there's that good retention. Like people do want to stay on and progress because people tend to move up into different roles, and you see a lot of, or you hear a lot of stories about progression at checker trade. People have maybe started on the phones or in support somewhere, and then they have the opportunity to move up into different roles. And I think again that just plays on having really good managers as well, who listen to you and understand what your interests are and where you want to be, and your aspirations, and actually acting on that as well and helping you get there. And that's so important as well.
Yeah. And on the topic of moving up through the ranks, and change tends to come from the top. Do you see female leaders at checker trade driving change?
Yeah, so I think in general at SheCanCode, I wouldn't say it's just female leaders, but we have really, really good allies as well. So change definitely comes from the top, and in general, females, males, it's quite a hot topic that's brought up in, say, management meetings. We have really good communities of managers, and more recently we had my head of engineering, he actually brought up the topic of women in tech and hiring in more juniors, and supporting female talent in our managers meeting. And I think for me, seeing an ally bring that up in a meeting, in a room full of men as well, that's so aspiring to me, and it makes me feel proud to be a woman at checker trade, where I've got so many male allies who are supporting me and also want to support other women growing in the company as well. And yeah, this, my head of engineering as well, he's a really good ally, and he tends to always ask for advice as well. So he's not just trying to make change based on his own actions, but for example, he was writing a job description recently, and he wanted to ensure that the words in it didn't sound too male dominated, and that he was using the right sentences that would attract both women and men. So he kind of posted that to the women in tech community that we have in checker trade and said, hey ladies, does anyone have some advice for me? I'm going to post up this job advert. How do you think it sounds? And I think just the effort that goes into someone or a man, saying, hey, I'm going to post a job advert, like, can you check this over for me from a female perspective and see what you think? I think it means so much, and it shows how much people actually care about doing the right thing to create an inclusive environment as well. So yeah, we have a lot of change that comes from the top, and not just like I said, off their own thoughts and actions, but from asking for advice and seeking constant thoughts of others around them, and taking into our consideration as well.
Yes, definitely. And it's something that we talk about on this podcast often, that has to trickle down from the top. If you don't see that example from the top, then you've got no hope throughout your company culture. And that it makes such a difference just seeing leaders set that example, of even reaching out and asking, just looking for that diversity of thought. Can I just pick your brains on this? I wanted to ask you, how does checker trade provide you with opportunities to progress in your own career? But you've mentioned a few already. Are there any others there? I mean, you mentioned goals, one-to-ones with your manager. It sounds like you're not thrown into checker trade and left on your own. It sounds like
no, really definitely not. I mean, I guess aside from the general career progression and the frameworks, etc., it's the allowing me to do the things I needed to progress my career as well. So when I say that, I mean there's a lot of opportunities where I can be like, hey, there's a networking event going on, I need to take the afternoon off so I can go to this networking event, or Women in Tech Roundtable, and I get the opportunity to take that time out and go to these events and network, go to meetups, go to hackathons. We get a lot of opportunities as checker traders to go to events and network and meet new people. And I think that's a really important thing for me to progress my career, is networking with others who are like-minded, because often when you go to these networking events, I'm constantly learning. Like, there's some really, really good conversations that go on at the roundtables I go to, and the bigger networking events, where you're just learning and you can share your experiences as a manager and as an engineer, or whatever role you do, with the other people in similar positions at those events. And it's almost a safe space where you can ask advice and see what other companies are doing, so then you can maybe bring back some of those tips and then share them with your company as well. So I often go to like some of the roundtables I go to, we have some really good conversations, and then I'll come back and I'll sort of post what I spoke about in my roundtable into the women in tech community, for example, if I went to a women in tech roundtable. And it just really helps, with ideas and bouncing those ideas off each other, because it's so easy when you're in one company to do things in a particular way or do things their way. So I think, just one of the other big things in terms of progressing my career is just allowing me to do that networking and have those opportunities and seek advice externally as well. It's so important.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough to have you at one of our hackathons recently, and that was fantastic. What we loved about that was the ladies that attended that, their experience was so varied. There was ladies there that had never been to a hackathon, and there were ladies there that had been and quite experienced in their roles as well. And like yourself, the experienced ladies had come to just meet new people and learn something new, and ladies that had never been to a hackathon before came to work on a first project and just meet new contacts. And it was such a great day, as you said, just hearing different conversations from different people really enriches everybody, and what you take back to your work at SheCanCode as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We are almost out of time, and I've got one last question for you. Do you have any advice for our listeners who might be thinking about getting into tech, but they're worried about starting a career within a male-dominated field?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'll just start off by saying, it's not as scary as you think. I know it sounds scary, and it can be scary when you're going into, either a room or a lecture hall or an office where you're a female and everyone else is a male. But you have to understand, I think there are so many allies now, and there's so many bigger networks who support women in tech and helping us progress and the right career path. So I would say be open to it and understand that there are going to be so many allies around you, although they may not be women. So many male allies have actually helped me progress, and some of the best places where I've been in progression, in terms of moving up in my roles or getting better at my roles, have been from male engineering managers or heads of engineering. So definitely don't doubt being in a room full of males, because they are some of our biggest allies as well, which is amazing. The other thing I would say is join communities and networks inside and outside of work. So have a look around the workplace, see if you've got any networks, where there's always networks where people have similar interests. It doesn't just have to be a women in tech network, but it could be just other networks for hobbies or movies that you see or sports that you do, whatever it is, because it's really nice, again, going into the workplace and just knowing that you have a few different social groups to connect to about different things, and that can really make you feel more relaxed at work and get to know more people. And then the other thing I would say is definitely attend women in tech meetups and roundtables outside of work as well. So I think the external events, as I mentioned before, they're just as important, because you get that different perspective from people working in different companies who are, in a similar position to you. Although they're not in your company, they may be in a similar position where they're one of few females in a very male-dominated office again. And it's nice to have those, or to share those similar experiences and just again know that you're not alone and you have a place where you can seek advice or regularly meet people outside of your workplace as well. And then my final piece of advice, I would say, definitely look into finding a mentor as well. So there are so many different schemes these days, or even workplaces have schemes where you can look for a mentor who's doesn't have to be someone who's in a higher position than you. It could be someone who maybe just has a bit more experience in the workplace, a few more years or whatever it is. And having a mentor can be that, I guess, that really good relationship you can build, a personal relationship where you can understand, where you can go to for advice and for tips, talk about experiences, and it's almost a safe place between you and one other person. It's really good as well to find someone who's maybe been through what you have. So say if you're joining as a graduate or someone who's done a boot camp, it's nice to find someone who's maybe been through that as well, so then they can offer their experiences as well and they can understand you. But definitely having a mentor is such an amazing thing, to just be able to check in with a mentor once a week or so to talk about your experiences and how things are going. It can really help you as well.
And I've heard before as well, that doesn't necessarily, that mentor doesn't necessarily have to be within your company. Sometimes it's beneficial to have one within your company and somebody that's completely removed from all of the politics and everything that comes with your company, because you just learn different things from each mentor.
Definitely, and I definitely agree. Like, there's so many mentoring schemes that are external as well that you can just find on LinkedIn, or you can try and, I know there's a lot of people in my network I see on LinkedIn as well, even myself. Like I always say, I'm open to people just messaging me and reaching out. And, you know, if people ever want to have a chat, I know so many engineering managers just like myself who would be more than happy to have a chat with, you know, junior engineers or mid-level engineers or whoever it is, wanting to just seek a bit of advice about the industry, and how they're doing, and have like monthly sessions or catch-ups, because it's something we all look to support those around us and who have maybe been through similar experience we have. So yeah, find a mentor, whether it's on LinkedIn or for an external company. Again, you can find really good mentors from just going to networking events and talking to people, and then you realize, oh, okay, well, you know, I could potentially be talking to this person as a mentor regularly. And yeah, just keep meeting people, and I think just seek the mentoring you need as well, and that will really help you excel.
Yeah, well, that is lovely advice to end it on, because we are already out of time. So thank you, Jess. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. You've been a fountain of knowledge and just sharing so much about your job. I'm sure our ladies will find it really, really, really useful. So thank you.
No problem. It's been really nice. Thanks for having me.
And to everybody listening, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.